thanks for that Prime Gaming sub. We see you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Smite Masters. And before we get kicked off here with our next match, we'd like to go ahead and give a big thank you to this year's title sponsor, Amazon Prime, or specifically Twitch Prime. With Twitch Prime, Charlie, you can do so many cool things. You can get free subscriptions for your favorite streamers. You can grab yourself some free games every month, as well as bonuses and rewards every single month for a whole host of your favorite games. And a whole bunch of other things that you can get with that, such as...
I mean, just so much. You just named them all. Yeah, it's great. Prime Gaming is a great time, and we appreciate them.
We do indeed. And just having a look at the schedule for the rest of the day here, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Eldritch Hounds versus the Kaolin Wardens right now. The winner of this game will go on to the next game here, which will be facing up against the Solar Scarabs, with the loser of this set actually being the first eliminated group so far.
Well,
from today.
The Scarabs lost.
The Scarabs lost, yeah.
So the winner.
The winner of this game go on to fight the Scarabs.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can see it here.
We can see it right here on the hand. This is what I said. I already went over this.
Right, but I need to see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
you needed to be able to see it.
Yeah.
Well, here you go. Here is a visual representation of everything I just said.
Thank you so much.
Are you happy now?
This helps out so much. Did they just make this? So this has been here.
Yeah, this has been here the whole time.
Well, I appreciate it. And if you guys have been watching thus far, you should be no stranger to this matchup because the Eldritch Hounds have already faced the Kaolin Wardens. Not just in this tournament, also in the regular season. Both times, the Eldritch Hounds have gotten the better of them. So the Wardens... they've got their work cut out for them. They've been 2-1 twice now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be... you got to imagine there's some sort of mental block there for the Wardens. You know, they're sitting in picks and bans going, right, we fought this Eldritch Hounds squad so many times at this point. We really need to be able to come back and win in this Game 2 scenario. Sorry, in this 2-game scenario. I'm not sure how they're going to feel if they have to go to that Game 3.
Well, here's one thing they could focus on, the fact that they've taken them down twice. Sure, they've lost 4 times, but they've beaten them twice. Focus on what you did those times, right? Well, what worked? You faced this team before. You can sort of, it's really just whichever team goes back to the drawing board and is able to just, adapt to the strategies they were using. Obviously, the Hounds have been looking very solid. Right? That goes without saying. They've been looking pretty dominant up in this tournament so far. So the Wardens, they do have their work cut out for them, as we mentioned, but they do bleed, and they've proven that.
Absolutely. And then this is almost bigger than just these two teams, right, Charlie? In essence, this match here is for the top team in SCC overall. Obviously, this last week, we've had 8 teams, so they're the top 4 from each region, and these are the 2 that have made it into this week up against the bottom 2 from the SPL, the Solar Scarabs and the Valkyries. So, realistically, this matchup right here is for that top spot of the SCC as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to hold on to that title if you are the Hounds because you're number 1 in NA, but I mean, you're already, because you essentially all of you's gone, right? So they are, right now, the Hounds are holding on to that, but I guess you're right to say the Wardens could dethrone them in that aspect. They would be able to continue on, and this is where it counts. If you were going to beat the Eldritch Hounds, do it now. Do it when you're sending them home, not so much just the regular season. This would be the time to show up, and if you were holding on to some sort of strategies. Obviously, Sino, I want to look at specifically, because Oath is a hard carry for this team, Oath being the jungler of the Eldritch Hounds, Sino being the jungler for the Wardens. Both of these players are very active on the map, whereas Oath is a high kill count, wants to get very active and get these last hits and use that gold to his advantage. Sino, when I think of him, I think of these stranger picks. He hasn't been whipping out too many of them. We saw the Scotty ones before, but besides that, we haven't seen the E-set jungle or any of those other odd picks. Maybe this is the time where he whips it out when you're at the point of going home.
There really does need to be something special from this team. And, well, Charlie, we're going to see if Sino is going to pull out any of those shenanigan-y based picks as we head into picks and bans here for game number 1. The Valhalla Valkyries. The Hounds are going to be taking first ban, and straight away they are taking Relentless One's Amaterasu away.
Yeah, probably going to be a smart option. We've seen so much of that Ama, and the auto attack warriors, despite what the casual player base might be saying right now, is still looking very strong. Anything that can deal with hunters, which Frostbound Hammer and just full tank right now does pretty well in the early stages, is going to be something you don't want to deal with. So I respect that going away. Mercury also been pretty highly contested in this tournament. Pretty easy to split up team fights with the Sonic Boom, and you can go over that long lane and get your ADC ahead. So taking those away, definitely going to be smart. Athena, not wanting to deal with that global presence that Quig has been so solid on. I think that's also going to be a great ban to take away. The Hounds now have their option of a first pick, and they're going to immediately grab that Baron Samedi.
See, this is something that they've been putting Remakami on basically all week. It's looked good in some games, not so good in other games. 57%.
It's looked meh.
It's looked generally okay. 14 games played, 57% win rate. That's only slightly higher than half. So
That's some great math.
Thank you. Yeah, 57 is higher than 50. That's what I learned in English math.
Well, you are correct, and it looks like King Arthur. I love seeing, we see like the Baron Samedi, which we assume is going to solo lane, but could also be going to that support role. We just have to, hold out and see. The King Arthur is going to be the answer back. Just a tried and true Bluestone warrior being thrown in that solo lane, trying to bully the Baron. You also have a lot of different ways to get away from life of the party. The suck cannot get you when you are using one of your many movement abilities on King Arthur. So I think a strong answer back if you are assuming that's going to be a solo lane Baron. Of course, you could always pivot and say, hey, we'll throw Quig on that. We want that to be a support pick now because of the matchup. Or you could just say, Rem, you're gonna be stuck on Baron today. Maybe don't try to fight in that matchup, but we can show you out late game when you ever get some upgrades.
Wardens opting for this Rama. This is maybe the second strongest ADC pick that we've seen so far, but highlighting this pickup here, the Bakasura. This is something that Oath has been playing a lot this week, and it has been working for him so much. The emote is going to pair up with it. This could be very scary going into the Wardens.
Yeah, King Arthur does not appreciate Bakasura, does not appreciate the Cripple Field.
The Vomit Goo.
Yeah, the Vomit Goo, if you will. It's just super annoying because I mentioned already, he has a lot of movement abilities to get away from life of the party. None of those you can use while in the Cripple Goo, except for his upgraded ultimate when you have full energy, that CC immune one. That's the only way you're going to get away from Bakasura. So Oath, not going to be too worried about this pick. You just want to farm up as much as possible and then just like hard carry the later stages of the game. I believe twice now I've looked at his like KD at the game and I'm like, oh, cool. It looks like the Hounds have 5 kills. Oh wait, all of them are on Oath.
They're all Oath.
That's twice now we've seen, and I believe both times were on the Baka pick. So he's been pretty effective on this.
And talking about signature pickups, Oath might have the Bakasura, but running back to the Arpwash, we're going to see Moswell here in the mid lane. Now this is another one of those pickups, Trelly, that we've seen the Wardens go back to time and time again. I'm not sure that it's really working out for them.
I will never shy away from explaining why I don't like the Alpwash pick in any matchup. Against Umoja and Baron, there's going to be a little bit of benefit to it. And as we do see, the Horus is going to be the option. So opting for some pressure, lots of CC, and global movement on this Horus pick with To the Skies. I think it's going to be a strong answer, but let me dial back once more.
Sure.
You've mentioned we've seen the Outwash and we've seen the Baka and we've seen them versus each other. And guess what Oath did? He simply regurgitated and nommed the Outwash. That's what happens. But giving credit where credit is due. The Fleeting Breath has a pretty solid matchup here. If you are going to hit the Baron heal, you can't really control who gets that heal, as well as the Mending Waters from Umoja. If the 2 already is going and you hit a nice Fleeting Breath, it will be a very annoying stun, and you're messing with your team. So Moswell likes this pick for the anti-heal, the damage, building like a Warlock Sash, and sort of just kiting. It's one of those ultimates that you have to get value out of, or else the pick seems useless, right? If you're emptying the crypts and then it's just like it's baited out, and you're like, oh man, what does Outwash bring? High burst damage that can be pretty body blocked, and that's about it.
Talking about this Horus, though, this is something we have not yet seen so far in this tournament, Trelly. I think this could be a really decent pickup. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is probably going to Gino in that support lane. I think that's most likely where we're going to see the Horus go. And I think it could have some interesting utility here. The Skadi going back to the jungle for Sino is what I'm going to assume. I think that's a pretty safe bet at this point.
Yeah, I think those are 2 safe assumptions you just made.
I think, if I was a betting man, I would put Sino on this Skadi. I don't think it's something that, in particular, Griff or Moswell like to play.
No, definitely not. Obviously, the Moswell Posh is going to be the option, and I think everything else is going exactly where it's slated. Double Hunter is going to be the last lock in here for the Hounds, so not too much magical damage rather, if Baron isn't going to be going for that tried and true Warlock stash build where you're trying to get some damage online. But you can really play Baron however you want because you've got a lot of penetration if you're going to be going with this Artemis, Ullr, and Baka, and Baka just simply has true damage with Butcher Blades. You don't have to worry too much about their protection, so I like the draft here for the Hounds. They have great early farm, great early damage with the Baka and Ullr here. The duo lane is going to struggle a bit because it's Horus who's going to bring high pressure, where Artemis is going to bring all sorts of low pressure. You don't really want to step up too far against that, but just wait until your Baka comes. He'll certainly be able to eat some back camps, rotate over, and then get you all the pressure you need.
Yeah, for sure. This Artemis is going to be a slow burn, but the Umoja has some decent utility to her that will help alleviate some of that a little bit. And if we can see Oath get off to this early start that he's particularly good at getting to, I think he could use that to transition over to that side lane and help alleviate some of that pressure, put some on to the Horus and the Rama here, which, by the way, this Horus, I think, could really do some interesting things in this lane to exploit that lack of pressure from the Hounds.
Yeah, I mean, Horus is going to want to go probably start Blink. That's what I like to do when I'm Horus. You want to blink in, find a fracture early, get those beads down, and then say, hey, Sino, I got beads. Are you going to come over and help us? And usually that'll be the option, but like I was saying, I think the Hounds are going to be pretty okay with just saying, we're not going to step up. We're not going to... We have Artemis. We don't want to look for these fights. We don't want to look for that pressure. We're going to sit back and wait till late game before the duo lane wants to get active. We have Baka running around. He'll get active for us. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, no, and active is exactly what Oath likes to be, right? You already mentioned he loves getting those last hits from his team.
Stealing the last hits.
Well, I wouldn't say stealing. I know that Dude Man Bro has. But this is something he likes to do, right? They like to give Oath these last hits to really put that extra lead onto him to get him snowballing early. And on a character like Bakasura, that could be really, really important. Not that Oath hasn't gotten ahead and done well without that early lead before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're actively saying, like, wait, guys, don't just let Oath get this kill. He simply is always near the kills, and he's always the one getting them because that's where he's at.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Hounds versus Wardens. Let's see how they do. Game 1.
It's going to be a rematch of their previous matchups, not just in the regular season, but in this exact tournament as well. The last time, we went to the Hounds 2-1. We'll see if the Wardens can maybe finally break their losing streak in this matchup here. It's J-Mac and Ro bringing action for game number 1. We're seeing Oath go back to this Bakasura pick, something that has gone on record of being very successful to this team, even to the point that some teams are banning this away from him.
That's right. It matches perfectly with his playstyle. The Des talked about it perfectly. He is just early game focused, right? He wants to get her up Crimson and Dude Man Bro into the late game. And both of them playing Hunters this time around. You know, they've got that objective DPS on top of Oaths. We've got all of our utility coming out from our two mages, our magical gods, in Baron and Umoja.
One thing that I'll just give a little shout to Trelly, something that we joked about on the desk prior. When a Baron is picked up, he says you have to have at least 2 other people plus the Baron pick up the Baron's Brew to get his seal of approval. Well, we have that this game with the Hounds, the dual lane, both grabbing one of those. But that does kind of bring up that interesting kind of topic that goes back when you grab Baron's Brew for so many people. Is that does limit the amount of wards that you can pick up in the early game.
It can do. I don't think they'll worry too much about it. And maybe Quig, because he won't be able to buy wards and a sentry ward, so that's where you'll see the most impact. Remakami also probably not going to be too many other potions other than his brew, so he should be able to get wards as well.
I know, half HP. Oath still chasing down, but will use the leap to get out. Crimson missing that axe toss, will now have some return fire thrown at him via the way of Calder and Sino, but Oath blinks back in. Not a whole lot of follow-up, though. Instead, he'll just chase down some damage onto Moswell, but those minions are chunking away at Oath's HP.
A lot of aggressive fighting here in the mid lane. Both teams trying to win that war and get that push so they get these mid camps.
Moswell throwing quite a few bodies out there and going to be able to get quite a bit of cooldown reduction from those by picking them up. Crimson and Oath both very aggressive on that last push, but they're not going to be too healthy come the next one.
And now they're sitting under that tower, so Alposh is able to clear the minions pretty effectively, and he's able to rotate into the jungle first and get those mid camps. We're not sure if Erupt Crimson and Oath will actually be even able to leave this lane. Sino and Moswell already heading to the mid camps. Maybe that gives some space for Oath to move to the right mids, but he might also just elect to go for those back camps, a safer option.
It's like a minefield with how many corpses that Moswell has been throwing under the tower, throwing just into the lane. Crimson's got to spend half the time just clearing those out. And now that Moswell has hit level 3, that should be an easy near full clear. But meanwhile, Relentless rotating out of the solo lane gets a back camp invade right before Oath can jump over that wall.
That's a great counter to Baron being first picked, is to pick a pressure guard, which King Arthur still is in that solo lane, so he's able to get invades like that. And that was just an opportunistic play. He saw that his team had pressure in mid lane. Oath elected to go for that mid camp instead of the back camp, which is the riskier option and pays for it a little bit. But on the other hand, again, just like a chess game, one team makes a move, the other does too. We're seeing invades.
Sino's waiting around the corner for Quig or Dudeman to step up to try and stop this one. But neither the dual lane or the Hounds are willing to push towards this purple, so instead Sino will just soak up the experience. So it's invades across the board. Sino steals the red buff away from the Eldritch Hounds, then moves over towards purple. Luckily, we didn't see, at least maybe for Remikami's sake, a blue buff get invaded at the same time.
No, in fact, he got a blue buff invaded on his own, so Oath able to steal away the blue buff from Relentless 1. And that's just, you know, I don't think a King Arthur can often out-secure a Bakasura eat. And now Bakasura also just farming his back camps, his speed buff, and catching up back on that XP that he lost out from being out-pushed in the early game.
And one of the things that I've been noticing with Sino on this Scotty pick in particular, whether how successful or unsuccessful it may have been, is he's building it much more assassin style,
That's right.
getting a few of these mace items and just going for more of this pure power style build.
Yeah, he's getting active early and kind of doing a similar job to Oath, which man, is slowly becoming the meta for some junglers. You know, get your team through the early game, and then once your carries come online and your supports are at full effectiveness, they can take over the team fights for you.
Now, how do you feel about Crimson going for Devourer's Gauntlet stacking item, where traditionally we've been seeing these rulers go more towards the Transcendence route?
Yeah, look, I still prefer the Transcendence and the hi-rez, and if you want crit, you can go Fail Not and stuff like that, and go the Flat Pen and ability damage with Heartseeker, all that good stuff. But the meta is right now for your hunters to have crit, and this is just a smoother path to get there. You got that starter upgrade, which goes into crit. You need lifesteal. You don't really have space for RC in your build with this build, so you have to go the Devourer's Gauntlet. So as long as he can manage his mana, he'll be just fine, but his abilities will be doing less damage. Auto attacks, on the other hand, just like any hunter.
Sino level 5. Oath hit level 5 as well. Moswell goes in, has the empty decrypt, and will force Oath to the wrong side of the map. But he should be just fine unless Gino can close gap, uses his own ult to find a way in towards the jungle. But for now, Oath will be just fine.
Yeah, able to eat a minion after that ultimate, so he's able to walk away pretty cleanly. Horror Assault was a little late, but we have to give credit to Sino as well. Hitting that ultimate over the wall roots Oath in that Moswell damage, but not quite enough. I think Oath took a good path there away from that Horus ultimate and is able to get away with his life.
And once again sets up Sino to go for a red buff invade and then make his way towards the dual lane for yet another potential purple invade. Griff still sitting in the lane. Gino goes in with a blink aggressively, but Dudeman pops that ultimate right away, pops that beat, and he will be out, but his purple buff will still be stolen out. Crimson getting a decent combo up onto Moswell, though not quite enough damage to kill the Opwash just yet.
And that's where we're seeing the build come into play as well. Less ability damage, and also Erupt Crimson pretty much now. He does have some MP5 and mana return on that starter item, but it's not going to be enough. You know, he might have to back sometime soon unless he holds those minions there and gets more Gilded procs, which returns, I think, 20 mana per kill.
You see a small skirmish between Relentless and Oath in the jungle, but that one will be squashed immediately, so Oath can rotate back in towards the min lane. And even Moswell going for a slightly different start of his build. Typically, we've been seeing that Warlock staff rush, this time going for Kaolin coin right out the gate.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's opted to do that. Maybe he just feels like he needs the percentage pen online earlier, which is surprising to me, but then again, maybe the movement speed is what he wants.
Mikami picked up, thrown back down, Sino on the way, and ult is available to the Scotty. But Sino will not choose to chase that one down, especially with Coffin still up. Mikami should have enough safety to stay away from that.
Yeah, and the reason we're seeing so much Baron play is because he's had these buffs. He had no problem. If he needed to ultimate, he could walk away in that ultimate. He's not slowed anywhere near as much as he used to be.
Maybe Gino would get aggressive towards mid, but instead he'll just walk over, claim one of the offering camps to start getting those trebuchets stacked up for their team. And that's kind of the The new interesting bit with the Trebuchet, with the offering camps now, it used to be on that very first rotation of the former version, you would be able to get a full stack of it as long as you could steal some away. Now, though, we do have to wait a little longer because there's not enough of those offerings to fully stack one on first rotation.
Yeah, oftentimes we're seeing a Trebuchet spawn at 8-9 minutes, and it really just depends whether or not you're stealing some of that juice from the enemy obelisk, you know. But again, more aggression on this red buff.
Oath? No, Oath is dead, actually. The dot right after from Oswald is enough to take him down. Who cares about the red buff? Let's get the fight. Doomman Bro used the ultimate to try and slow things down, but a Horus ult in by Gino will give a shield, and Moswell will pick up a double. Quig on the run, but not very far to go. Gino spots him out, but Gino doesn't have the cooldowns to keep up the chase. The Kaolin Wardens strike fast to get Moswell a double.
This time, the Kaolin Wardens are just saying, you know what, they're going to fight us at this red buff. They're no longer free, but doesn't matter. We will all in, use all of our ultimates, and win this fight handedly, really. Doomman Bro now 2 levels behind. Moswell now a level ahead. Also 2 kills, 1 stack on that stacking item as well.
Relentless eats some poke from Remikami. He'll be out, but meanwhile, Crimson and Moswell are duking it out, but thanks to the passive of this Opwash, able to heal up most of the damage that Crimson threw his way.
Yeah, make no mistake, Moswell is ahead, but you still don't win this 1v1 matchup. He's just playing for these team fights, those big engagements like we just saw at that red buff. That setup from Horus, perfect. The root from Sino, perfect. And just the damage that comes out from a burst mage that is Opwash is going to be able to, you know, burst through multiple kills just like we saw then.
Duo lane of the Wardens pushing up towards Dudeman, who Dudeman has not gotten to use that ultimate aggressively just yet. Both times defensive, one at his purple buff, and that time to try and run while he was sitting at the red buff. And that seems to be at least the eye target for the Wardens, is to try and keep this duo lane down, because for the Hounds, while Oath has been a big playmaker, while he has been popping off, this dual lane has been a very silent carry for the Hounds.
That's right. I mean, Oath just saying, I can't help this dual lane too much right now. I'm going to go farm the other side of the map while Sino is invading our side of the map. And, you know, he's able to stay equal in level himself, but his ADC and his support now falling behind because they're losing that experience from those buff invades. You know, Doomman Bro also quite behind in stacks as well. Won't matter too much, but Griff, if he gets those stacks and he gets that crit online first, like the Wind Demon, I'm sure he has a lot of gold in his pockets right now, they can start looking at objectives, start looking at pressuring that purple and red buff again, and maybe take some juice from the obelisk too.
I'm just going to be honest with you, Ro. I can't recall the last time I've seen an Ullr build a traditional, more hunter-style build. This is definitely throwing me for a loop, seeing not just the Devourer's Gauntlets, but also now working in towards that Wind Demon that we've been seeing so commonly as a second item.
Yeah, look, it's just the meta hunter build, right? And you can't go without it.
Sino in danger. Oath needs a couple more clamps down. Moswell will slow him away, though, and the cavalry has arrived. Griff credited to the kill. The Kaolin Wardens find their third. Gino using that ultimate.
Straight
Where
to
will he
cover.
crash down? It'll be inside that purple buff camp for another quick, easy invade. Dudeman Bro, that's his only chance to steal that one out. He will not get it.
A valid attempt by Oath to try to defend these buffs in a different way. He looks for the jungle 1v1 pick before these buffs come up, but he just can't get it done. Sino lives with low amount of health, and still, because of the mobility of Horus, they're able to get back to that buff and invade immediately. So Doomman Bro not being helped, I mean, not without effort of Oath, but Doomman Bro not being helped at all just yet. He's lost his buff once again, 2 levels behind. I think, you know, Griff's finished his stacking item, and I imagine he will have a Wind Demon coming up soon.
And one of the things I'm noticing so far, Ro, is that there's been little to no relic pressure against the Kaolin Wardens. It's mostly been this blink initiation by Gino over everything else. The Eldritch Hounds have not forced any of these beads, or at least not very many impactful beads away from this team.
And that's just the benefit of having this early pressure god that is Horus over something like a Yamoja that has a very long cooldown on that ultimate. Takes a longer, you know, maybe has some wave pressure, but that's about it. Once you get into this jungle, this warrior support is playing at a faster pace than this Guardian.
We do see extra stack up of anti-heal from Moswell, so not just all of the built-in anti-heal that an Opwash has within his kit, but throw a Divine Ruin in there. Somebody gets caught inside that ultimate, they're probably not healing very much, if any at all. This Pyromancer is going to need some help from the Kaolin Wardens to try and grab it away, but they will not. It'll go to the Hounds, but Gino went aggressive to try and slow this one down. Moswell throws out some damage from a range, And it'll do some good damage to Quig, but not enough to stop the Hounds.
A good call. They must have seen that Sino was backing and going to base to buy his items. They decided to take the 4v3 as quick as possible, use the advantage that is a Hunter mid laner and a auto attack jungler to get that DPS down onto that Pyromancer. They don't have great secure because they don't have that objective damage, but all of that pressure is being used. They've used it on the Pyromancer, and now Hounds just the Wardens just walk over to the Gold Fury.
Yeah, sure. Pyromancer goes down. Who cares for the Wardens? They will grab the first Gold Fury of the game, and that'll put them up 2,000 gold and nearly 3k XP. And that trebuchet stacked up from earlier is going to keep Dude Man Bro busy on this left side, enough so that Sino and Griff can rotate in. A good route will force out Tusky from Dude Man Bro, and that will be all of the engage that the Eldritch Hounds will have to deal with for now. The Wardens will back away.
I can't imagine they'll stick alongside this trebuchet, but they will use the pressure they created to take this purple buff. The red buff already secured by Erupt Crimson, so not as bad as the early game was going for them. But again, Dude are given no chance to catch up in this game.
Trebuchet will get only one shot. I thought maybe we were going to get at least one more fired off there against that tier 1 tower, but no, it will just be the one to put a little bit of pressure on towards that T1. Remikami going with the more standardized style of Baron play. Last game, or last set I should say, we did get to see a different look at Baron Somni with, instead of going for the Bumbas, we had an alternate timeline that actually ended up saving Aquarius' life at the end of that game 1. But now back to the more standardized play.
Yeah, standardized play, especially from Relentless One, playing this typical warrior, and he's getting to the point where he's going to be able to rotate to these objectives. Although they've had so much duo pressure, he does not even need to. So I guess that's good for Remikami in a way. He gets to safely just, solo farm and get to that closer to that Boomba's Hammer. But I imagine Relentless One going to get active on this map much quicker before Remikami can.
Greater Scorpion will get stolen away by the Eldritch Hounds. The Warden's going to lose out on some of those enhanced buffs of their own, at least for this spawn of it. Now, when you look over at the side of the Eldritch Hounds, you're looking at Remikami, who's going to have a big heal for the team. Quig will have some big healing for his team. And then some of that self-sustain from the lifesteal and then from Oath.
Yep.
Is this one Divine Rune, I guess including the Brawler Speed Stick from Sino, is this enough anti-heal from the Wardens to deal with this as we get to these late game fights?
I think it is. Look, they have some of their own sustain in Horus to make up for it as well. Relentless One may be falling down here as well to Oath.
Does juke away from Oath, will spin for as fast as he can. Oath does eat one of his own minions to get a little bit of a movement speed boost. But now with Gino rotating over, that'll be the end of that engagement. More fighting on the left-hand side. Doom and Road deals with another ultimate while Oath caught out at the back camps. Remikami now rotates over to help out his teammate. Gino gets pulled into the coffin, but Gino's fairly tanky on this horse, just waiting for a teammate to give him an outing path, and that will be Moswall over the wall.
Gino, not worried for his life at all, had the ultimate the entire time, had no problem just absorbing that Baron ultimate and just waiting to, like you said, dash to Moswall over that wall.
Group up on the left side for the purple buff, but now it's a 3 versus 2 for the Eldritch Hounds, but the River's Rebuke does not catch out anybody, does catch Sino with a Riptide, but Crimson is the one losing out on this fight. It's now a retreat from the Eldritch Hounds and a re-engage by Gino and Moswall. They've come through, but Gino steps inside of a trap, and that's going to be the end of the fight for the Wardens. An unfortunate misstep by the support of the Wardens.
I've lost count how many purple buffs that is. I've lost count how many red buffs this is.
All.
But all except maybe the first one if they're lucky. But yeah, it has been a rough early game for Doomember and Quig, and I guess Erupt Crimson as well, losing most of his red buffs this game.
I see a 2-level deficit between the Hunters, 1 between the supports and the mid there. The only lead that the Hounds have in any regard right now is just by Oath via levels, and that's 13 to just now hitting 13 on the side of Sino. So Kaolin Wardens still hold that golden XP lead, though, as small as it may be, only around that 2,000 point.
Yeah, look, Oath, he's able to farm up on his own. Such a fast-clearing jungler. I can't imagine Remikami's in much danger here. Has the beads, has the ultimate available, using it aggressively. His team is on their way. Gino absorbs that ultimate. I'm not sure his team is going to get here fast enough.
All the root is going to go through at the very least. Remikami is walking in because he's got backup now. Quig and Oath take the Riptide. It's a blink out from Gino. Relentless One doesn't have the same luxury until just now manages to make it under that tier 2 tower, and the Wardens will make it out.
Big commitment to chase those kills, so they otherwise could have just gone back to that tier 1, but what they want is blood.
Heal is going to be good, but Moswall drops the crypt in the middle, and Remikami does not have anywhere to go. Moswall closes out the kill. Gino goes back in. Quig inside the Riptide will meet with Griff on the other side. Moswall and the rest of the Wardens chasing down Quig. and Moswall picks up the double.
Completely punished for overstaying their welcome there. They run through the tier 1 tower, hang around at the blue buff just too long, and now they're being altered by a Horus. And they'll go back to the, I imagine, I was going to say the Pyromancer, but they're starting the fire. This is the Sino call that we've been talking about.
This might be the earliest Fire Giant that we have seen this weekend, but there's still 2 members of the Hounds up. The Fire Giant down to half HP. Oath and Crimson have steal opportunities unless they get poked out.
They're gonna get it
as heavily as they have been. 16 minutes and 20 seconds. The Kaolin Wardens grab themselves a very early Fire Giant.
Impressive stuff. We judge this Guardi as much as we want, but that is a big reason they just secured that Fire Giant. The chase potential at that blue buff. The Horus chase potential even further down to poke them out. And the Horus zoning, stunning Oath when he comes in, forcing his beads, means Oath is no longer confident to defend that Fire Giant. Erupt Crimson can't do much on his own, especially with half health. And then you have a Hunter jungle DPSing a Fire Giant at 16 minutes.
With that, the Kaolin Wardens have now complete control of the map. Though the Golden XP is still a small differential, the Hounds will try and mitigate that by grabbing themselves an Oni Fury with the double hunters of their own alongside Oath there. So, at least something out of nothing for the Eldritch Hounds. Picking up Oni will at least slow down the Wardens a little bit in this lane.
Yeah, now it's up to them to see if they can defend these towers. Those Oni minions will help, but they cannot get picked outside of these towers. Otherwise, that Fire Giant will turn into a much bigger lead for the Kaolin Wardens. Again, I have to remind you, they're just trying to scale to the lane.
Griff up in the sky. Gino gets in to try and help out, but it's 3 versus 2. They're going to need some extra backup. Tusky is dropped and Griff will die. As soon as he lands back down, it's Quig credited for the kill, and Dude Man Bro picks up one of his own. And what 2 perfect members to strip that Fire Giant buff from.
That's all they needed. That buys them a ticket to that level 20 mark. Remikami will go back to his lane. He will farm. He might lose some minions to that Oni wave, but that is no problem. His team will get him some towers. They have pressure to take that obelisk if they want it. They're safely farming in the mid lane. I say safely. Erupt Crimson already has beads forced.
Used his beads and still being chased down by Sino and Crim. The root is good from Sino's ultimate. The Aegis is gone from Crimson, but Relentless One is eating a lot of tower shots. He will be able to make it out of this one. Remikami rolls up to try and help out, but the beads from Sino and the body blocks from Relentless might not be enough. The Aegis is good. Sino is out for now, but that Vivid Gaze right after Remikami will shut him down, and now that's 3 without the buff.
Look, Crimson will be fine. I'm calling that worth. Get Remikami closer to level 20 much faster. Get him the gold from that kill. He is their win condition in the late game. Obviously, these hunters need to be able to do damage, but I trust Erupt Crimson and Dude Bro, despite having a rough early game, will still be able to do damage, just as hunters do in this current meta.
Oswald does go back to base. One relic that he does manage to pick up, and thanks for bringing up the gold charts for us here, Doug. That 3,000 golden XP swing that the Kaolin Wardens had, and the 5 members of Fire Giant, only 2 have Fire Giant, and that lead is pretty much entirely gone. But going back to Moswall, second relic that he ends up picking up, not just the shell, but a phantom shell to upgrade to go up against Quig.
Great, yeah, you can walk through walls, which is great for Quig, but you can also walk through minions, walk through enemy gods. So if Oath and his minions are in his way, he can just walk straight through them and get to safety much quicker.
Do see Oath take away that Greater Scorpion and continue their power farm. The Eldritch Hounds have bought themselves a little bit of extra time in game number 1 with that Kaolin Warden's misstep in left, and then an overcommit to killing Erupt Crimson in the mid lane.
Yeah, so look, we've talked about the narrative of early game versus late game. Obviously, Kaolin Wardens were in very well control of this early game, taking away all of those purple and red buffs. But now, you know, I would argue Eldritch Hounds have a stronger late game. They've got 4 levels to go on each of their hunters, 2 levels to go on the Baron Guardian-esque solo with Boomba's Hammer. So Kaolin Wardens don't want to give them any room to breathe. They are pressuring the mid tower already.
Tier 1 tower dive, Relentless One leading the charge, but now he is stuck on the wrong side of the walls with Gino. The carries have been separated from the front line, and Oath is picking apart Sino in the back line. That's the first kill, and Dude Man finds another one of his own. Relentless caught out in the middle of 3. A jump in by Crimson. 1 stun will not be enough to save Relentless One. Dude Man Bro picks up a double kill, and the Eldritch Hounds are back in control.
Wardens are in trouble now. They have lost their ticket to the early game. They are now going to be in the late game, whether they like it or not. Hounds are in control of this game, and their team comp is only about to get better.
Minions will push in to at least help out take down this tower. Trebuchet not even necessary to push it. That'll be something that the Wardens will have to deal with once the Hounds have left. Actually, they can't. The minions have been killed from the Trebuchet, so it's just sitting there all alone in the mid lane. That poor Trebuchet just wants to move.
It'll move now. Maybe
there
get
we
a hit
go.
or 2 on the Phoenix. Maybe Griff will catch it in mid as well and get some XP from those minions while he's at it.
You see purple buff invade. It's got to feel good for Dude Man Bro now being able to invade an enemy purple buff after for the first 12, 13 minutes of the game, it was his buff that was always under contact.
Yeah, I can't imagine he's bragging about it. You know, that's 1 to 17. What was that? I don't know. Made that number up, but something like that.
Close enough.
I'm sure that's what it felt like for him. But finally getting a little bit of farm for himself. He's got that Deathbringer online as well. Before Griff gets that Deathbringer online, despite what happened in the early game, what a swing from that dual lane.
We do have dominance picked up by Crimson now, so a little bit of extra % pen for himself, especially boosting up those basic attacks and then building in towards even more crit. Gino gets caught out here just a little bit, but the nature of the horse, as long as somebody is nearby, he'll have a way out.
And this is a benefit of this double hunter, by the way. They can already start to play around these objectives. They don't need to wait until they're in control of the game, which they are now, but they don't need to wait for Remakami to get that Boomba's Hammer. You know, that's what, you know, Hex Mambo, for example, were waiting for. They're waiting for Remakami. Speaking of, he's just been blinked on by 2.
Does have the coffin, will not stun anybody just yet. Instead, it's the River's Rebuke thrown out by Quig to catch out a couple. Gino is low, will dash to Relentless to try and get safety, but Dude Man Bro will find the kill up against Griff. Crimson going on top of Gino with the help of Remakami. Quick picks up 1, Crimson picks up 2, and once again the Wardens are left with only 2 fighters left standing.
We talked about it, and it's becoming fact. This team comp for Hounds is just better in the late game, and they're playing it well as well. It doesn't matter how quickly they can engage on the Wardens, how quickly they can engage on the Hounds. It just doesn't matter. They're just going to be able to out-team fight this team.
Relentless pulls a couple off of Fire Giant. He'll be able to get back to the safety of the Tier 2 tower. But that Fire Giant still being held onto by Quig, and Dude Man goes down. Took a little bit of time. Quig definitely got low there. But the Eldritch Hounds have swung this game entirely around. Down 3K earlier on at that 16-minute mark, and now just 6 minutes later has spiraled to a 6K lead of their own.
This all comes down to those couple picks after that Fire Giant in the dual lane. In Dude Man Bro's lane, who was having such a hard time in the early game, ends up clutching it after the enemy team gets Fire Giant, and then he just gets a few kills, which delays the game, and they can win team fights because they've scaled.
What even killed Griff? Was it Tusky that killed Griff? Because Dude Man wasn't even that far back in the fight from what I understood.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was a 3v2 in the end, so it was just Wardens getting ahead of themselves. They did have a small lead, and they did have Fire Giant, but Dude Man Bro's down but not out.
And now, with the Eldritch Hounds in control, they have 1 tower left standing on the map, and then 3 Phoenixes to close out before they can start making their way towards that throne room. The Gold Fury will be the next target of the Hounds to add a little bit more gold to their pockets, maybe finish up a couple of these Deathbringer glyphs if they so choose, and Venom Deathbringer has become the more popular of the ones picked up, though we have seen now a couple of Malicious Deathbringers themselves picked up, but don't imagine that'll probably be the call for these 2 hunters.
I imagine, you know, the Envenom one would probably be better on Artemis just because she wants to land those auto attacks constantly, but, you know, a bit of cooldown reduction for Erupt Crimson, that might not be too bad.
Could be an option. Root Sprint by Gino is up for this
Believe
next
it's
fight. Yeah, Sprout, sorry. Yes. Yeah, we'll give it the official word, Sprout. Meanwhile, so what do we call it? What do we call the speedy one, the hastened one? Does that one have a cool name?
Don't buy this.
Don't buy it. Well, we'll see if it can at least pay off for the Hounds in this fight on the left Phoenix. It's not saving the bird of the Kaolin Wardens. Oath finds a pickup against Sino in the 1v1 in mid, and that opens up the door for the Eldritch Hounds to now have not just the Fire Giant power play, but just an individual power play. 5 versus 4. That left Phoenix will not stand much longer.
Nope, they just need to tap it. That's the advantage they need going into this enhanced Fire Giant in another 6 minutes. But they're, you know, they're not waiting around. They're going to go towards mid lane as well.
Walk over there. Have to wait a moment as
Aggressive
Moswell
path.
throws out some of that damage there. Gino gets spotted out. Eats a little bit of poke. Meanwhile, the carries of the Eldritch Hounds are still in the mid lane. Moswell is going to throw out some good damage onto Crimson, who's caught out by himself. Crimson should go down here to the snipes of Griff, and he will. Gino goes back into the fight to try and cut off the path. But Remakami's got some good heals if he can find one here to keep him alive. No, Dude Man Bro still goes down. It's Griff, credit to the kill. And Relentless finds a double stun in the mid, still chasing them out the front line. Are on the run while Oath can do nothing but watch as his frontliners are being slowly picked apart. But Remakami pulls one into the coffin. It's going to be Gino. Oath finally goes back into the back line, but Griff has picked up his 3rd kill of the fight until he finally goes down. Oath turning into grab 1. Remakami grabs Gino, and Oath will just gobble up Moswell for the delayed deicide.
Oath going to get so much credit for that fight, but honestly, Remakami being chased from the Phoenix all the way down to here with that Boombiz constantly resetting his cooldowns and constantly being able to fight, peel, and heal for his team. That gives Oath all the space he needs to come in for these kills. I can't imagine they'll be getting much else done here because Scotty, can fight them off for a little while, but that's the punishment that Erupt Crimson took for taking that path all the way in front of that wall. I think Dubembro was sitting on the button, opening the door saying, hey, come on through, but that was a bait, honestly. They don't need to be that aggressive for no reason.
Remakami and Oath will dive in towards Sino, who's losing all of his health. The coffin not even necessary for the kill. It'll just be the 2v1. The mid Phoenix will go down, and the Hounds will come up big. 11k gold ahead, and a deicide to their name, add another with Sino going down.
Again, a Boombiz Hammer highlight. You have to have that ultimate backup to be able to siege that, and no problem when he has it back up. I wouldn't be surprised if he used it 3 times in that fight with the amount of auto attacks that he got off. But just when he's walking back up to that Phoenix, he's using an ability, auto attacking the Phoenix, getting some cooldown reduction on repeat, and then once it's back up, they're ready to dive, pull Sino in, and he's dead.
Remakami really making this item work out well and really highlighting just how potent it is for a Baron Samedi. Eldritch Hounds, 15-9 on the kills, and still being able to push up this lead. The Fire Giant has worn off. It'll be back up in 40 seconds, and the Hounds can easily set up this aggressive positioning. The Kaolin Wardens, they've only got 1 Phoenix left to defend, and what's that point that they need? What's that pick that they have to grab in order to keep that defense up?
Look, they just need to catch someone sleeping again. Just like they caught Crimson on the other side of that wall and were able to kill him, despite losing the team fight in the end to the Baron Samedi and the Bakasura left over. That's what they need. They need to come catch someone out of position so they can take these team fights, because honestly, these 5v5 team fights are not in their favor.
Group up by the Hounds to see if they can catch one of the Wardens out of position. But Sino's all the way back at the base, just coming back in from his last fall. And the Kaolin Wardens are stepping up, but there are 3 players grouped around the wall. Oath wants the 1v1 against Sino. Sino uses the Aegis right away, and that'll make Oath think twice about going any further. Relentless gets caught by the Riptide, and Relentless one should go down in this. He's spinning as fast as he can to get away from the Baron. Remakami will not pull anybody in. Gino is low, but Oath is still batting away in the backline. Relentless one gone. The snipes coming out from Griff are going to be stopped instantly, and Oath picks up the double kill. Crimson grabs Griff. Only 2 left alive of the Kaolin Wardens, and that might not be for much longer. Moswell is being ran at by Oath. Triple kill for the jungler, and give him a 4th one. Deicide for the Hounds, and game 1 goes to them.
I cannot believe we're talking about Oath, and he's the early game carry. Well, guess what? He's a quadra kill at the end of this game. He's carrying all game. What a perfect player for this team right now.
And what a perfect god to really encapsulate Oath's exact style of play. You want to get in, get aggressive early, and still be able to get in aggressive late. Typically not a god we would think of, more so maybe along the lines of set, but he's playing it almost like he's playing set.
Yeah, I mean, that's the playstyle that he's coming to this tournament with, and it's working perfectly with him. They're about to be crowned if they can win one more game at the top of the SEC, and not just in North America, the top of the SEC in the world, because they've come so far in this tournament.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is the last 2 SCC teams left in Smite Masters, and if you can be crowned the #1 out of all of them, whether you win your next set after probably doesn't necessarily matter as much. It still definitely matters. You definitely do want to get that win, but if you can get a win here and be the best SCC team, it's got to be a good one. We'll see if the Hounds can keep this up in game 2 coming up right after this.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Game number 1 goes pretty solidly in favor of Eldritch Hounds, despite an early lead coming through from the Wardens. Of course, it's going to be me, BlazyBot, and Trelly Relly back on the desk here to talk a little bit about how that game went. Trelly, it was a bit of a slippery slope there for the Wardens once they started to lose their grip.
Yeah, I mean, they came out swinging, as you would expect, but unfortunately, for me, it was the comp. Again, I know Moswell loves this pick, man. I know that he loves this pick. I feel like it falls off a little bit late game. It's certainly not all on his fault. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. I just think it's hard to find the success of the outwash when this happens, right? Like, Bakasura is a pick that Oath loves to go to, and it just seems like it just runs over it so easily.
Yeah, it definitely made it difficult for Moswell. He did get off a couple early kills, though. I think he was 3-0 at one point there in the early game, but yeah, as you said, just not really giving a lot of respect to what the Eldritch Hounds likes to play. And here's one of the quadra kills, I believe, from Oath, from near the end of that game, goes back in to kill Oath there and then turns around. Crimson actually mugs him off. He steals that kill onto Griff. And then Oath is able to pick up the rest of these two, kills Moswell and Gino here. So you got to feel bad. The second time this LAN, Oath has been denied a Penta.
Yeah, I know that I was highlighting the outwash, but also the Scotty. Both of these picks are extremely immobile and just, I know they like them. Obviously, Sino's been playing the Scotty jungle for quite some time, but it never seems to work up against the Hounds, and didn't work this time either. Obviously, it's going to do a ton of damage. I mentioned that beforehand. Like, Empty the Crypts is going to be such a great team fight ultimate, and you're going to rack up so much damage. The anti-heal is going to be there, but living through the fight after the fact is the issue. So, no real fault to Moswell. I just think the pick, it's not the best. That's just my opinion, and I'm going to roll with it until it ends up just stuffing the Hounds. So they do have to go back to the drawing board here and find out a different way to make this late game better, right? Because the early game was not the problem. The Wardens were off to a solid start, as you mentioned, at least a 3-0 start, and then it kept going, and after the objective fights, it was 10-8, still pretty even. It was just as the game went on, as Oath got its items underway, was a speedy little Baka. That was the issue towards the end of that game.
Yeah, no, I got to agree with you on the upwash as well. In particular, I think this is really something that the Wardens could look to change up. You know, Moswell has other picks that he likes. Granted, a lot of them are immobile, so
yeah,
you would
true.
face. You know, you got the Zeus, you got the Vulcan. These aren't characters who necessarily the Hell as well. But I would argue, you know, the Hell has a lot of movement speed, at least in the build. So does Zeus and Vulcan. So at least that gives them a little bit of escapability. The Apwash, no movement ability, no extra movement speed as part of the kit. You really don't get a lot of options on this character, and I just think that there could be something else for Moswell to lean into.
Yeah, I mean, he had top damage that game, which, again, is more so because of that ultimate. It's going to create so much space, and if you're caught inside of it, you're simply just going to get value. But there's other picks that got to do that. Now, if you want to lean very hard into that mid lane pick, and you're saying, you know what, that wasn't the problem. We, as the Wardens, think that we could have protected Moswell better in the later stages of the game. Then maybe it's put Gino not on something like Horus, not on something that's going to be going in as quickly as possible, not something, you know, maybe on the Capri or the Geb, something safe, something that has a shield or something that has a deniability, anything that's going to keep that pick alive. There are different ways to go about this. You don't just have to say the pick didn't work out right. You can say, hey, maybe we could have supported it better and or like been more diving into the backline so that the enemies can't free cast onto us, things of that nature. So the Wardens are certainly not out, and they don't have to throw away the draft that they just went for. I just imagine they're going to be thinking more so about how they can protect it and change how their late game, mid to late game, will be able to change after what we just witnessed.
So on that note, I want to ask you about the Horus. I think it was able to find a little bit of value on some of these rotations, on some of these ganks, but do you think it was worth the pickup compared to some of the other Guardians that we could have seen, you know, on Gino?
I mean, it just really depends on what you're looking for, because Horus is going to be an initiator, and he's got some peel, but it just didn't seem like the late game. Again, that's what I want to focus on, right? The late game is where you need to change, because if you are happy with how that early game went, you don't have to change anything, right? Then you just have to make adjustments. So was it the comp? Was it the play style? It really was a bit of both, I would say. So the Horus, I'm not saying scrap entirely. You don't have to just throw that pick away, but do different things with it. And if we're going to roast the picks, again, I had to circle back to this. Scotty, it just wasn't able to find that success late game either. So that could be another way they look at this as well.
Sino maybe looking to pull out something different for this game. Maybe we see the E-set come back into the jungle even. There are a lot of options for this guy, you know, both in the regular pool of jungle picks, but also in the Sino pool of jungle picks, which can include just about anything from what I've seen. But the Wardens here on the first pick this time around, going to ban out that Athena. Quig has shown that he is too powerful on this character. They do not want to deal with it. Equally so, they do not want to see Relentless One back on this Amaterasu, so Hounds are going to take that one away as well.
Yeah, we're just seeing the run back as of now. Nothing too out of the ordinary thus far. We saw the Athena beforehand because the global pressure, very annoying. Amaterasu we saw beforehand, Jingwei, clean. These are all the typical bans. So the Wardens, I don't think are trying to make any adjustments in their ban slot, maybe just, you know, taking something away. They have a lot of different options here to upset the flow of the Hounds, given the fact that they just got that win. The Wardens are the ones who need to make adjustments, obviously, and Baron Samedi is going to be their first pick here.
Taking it away from Remakami, this is something that, again, I kind of touched on last game. This isn't something we've necessarily been a be-all, end-all pick for this team. The Hounds definitely shown that they can win with it. They've shown that they can lose with it. So I don't think they're too broken up about it. The Wardens picking it up first, though, clearly something that they value. The Jingwei off the table here, so maybe we see Dude Man Bro run back to that Rama that we've seen him like so much. Yomoja also available for Quig. It is, in fact, going to be the Artemis locked in for Dude Man Bro here first.
I'm surprised. I was thinking Chernobog could have been a nice option as well if you wanted some of that global pressure, but just going for the Artemis. I mean, we mentioned it last time, the fact that you're covering all your bases, right? Because you want some early pressure, you want some late game presence as well. Artemis is going to be able to just make sure, hey, our late game is just stamped. Like, just put a lock on it now. We're going to be just fine. As long as Artemis goes into 20-25 minutes of the game mid to just a little bit behind, or even like just even. If you're just net even, you will have just fine late game, and answer back pretty much immediately with the Heimdall. So the ADCs will be taken away right away, but this time it's going to be the Sylvanas. We've seen a bit of Sylvanas this tournament, mostly and most notably from El Leon, trying to get some pressure in that dual lane, some great pull-ins, things of that nature, but not too much priority has been put into the Vanus.
But on the flip side here, Trelly, Erupt Crimson and Thoth, a match made in heaven. Someone who Myth has accused of playing on mouse and keyboard back in the days of console. He's so accurate with his character, and this is something that is potentially devastating for the Wardens if they can't figure out a way to deal with it. Not a lot of dive for this team so much. Baron not really fitting that solo lane style of I'm going to dive the backline. Instead, a little bit more supportive. So we'll have to see something a little bit more reactive from the jungle side of the Wardens side of the draft here. Trelly, looking into the second half of bans, what are we looking for the Wardens kind of to lean in here?
I imagine a Baka ban, and there it will be. So
Nice.
that's going to be
Well called.
Yeah, that would be a smart option, taking that one away. Now, if you're the Hounds, you have one more option here as well, trying to get. I don't think you're going to ban away the Outwash or the Scotty. I mean, you're not worried about either of those picks. Maybe just a little bit annoying trying to hold your heal when a fleeting breath is coming, but you could play Yamoja just with her auto attack heals and stuns, not even worry about the Mending Waters until like after a fight, and you would be just fine. Really, the River's Rebuke, that's what you're focused on. Her healing, more so something that comes after the fact. So I don't think that's a playstyle that you have to adhere to, but if you want to just put Moswell on something different, that could certainly be the option. They're just going to go with Kali. Like, again, neither of those picks, they're not worried about Scotty or the Outwash.
Yeah, it's a perfectly valid ban here. It's something that can work well to dive into the backline, deal with the Artemis, deal with the Thoth potentially. Doesn't have the best gap close against the Thoth, but still definitely a threat. Meanwhile, they're going to take the set away from Oath. This is a character, well, time and time again, we've just seen him do immensely good things on this set. But now back to the Bastet. Now, I think this is probably going to lean over towards Ramakami into that solo lane. This isn't really a character we've seen Oath on a whole lot, but yeah, so I think this could be a really interesting pickup for the Hounds. There's a lot of immobility here on the side of Wardens that you can really abuse with that Hunter at best.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what the Wardens are going for here, because again, that Outwash is still on the table, and Yamo just going to be the option there that you want to try to deal with that anti-heal. But I have to think that the Wardens, they have adjustments to be made. So Scotty and Outwash, they're both open, and they were both played last game. Both did fine in the early game, and as it went on, they realized that's not going to go through. So Merlin is going to be the hub here. This is completely... Did you see the look on Oath's face? He also
He's
did
like,
not,
wait, Merlin?
He's like, wait a second. That's a pick that makes sense here. That's odd. So Merlin is something that doesn't come online quite early.
Oh,
and
no.
these are just normal picks. What is happening?
Well, you say normal picks. The Thor is not necessarily very normal at the moment. Not super valued so far this week. We haven't really seen much play from Thor full stop in Season 9 thus far. So we'll have to see if this is just a hover. They're still holding on to these. They got 40 seconds left, and it is going to be the last minute pivot.
I love that.
The AMC definitely not a bad choice.
I love that.
It'll be the Poseidon
Wow.
coming in here as the last pick. I gotta agree with you. These are some really good picks to change up the draft last second.
This is exactly what you have to do if you're the Wardens. This was a complete flip of the script, essentially. You go from virtually no pressure in the mid lane from the Outpost to infinite pressure. This AMC is going to have such an easy time clearing the wave. You do have to worry about the hieroglyphic assault from the Thoth, but if you're able to just like essentially close gap and just stuff him with the stinger, he has to use the beats every time. It's going to be super annoying, and to try to deal with that, Tsukuyomi will be the jungle option here, which is another pick that we have not seen so much this weekend. I believe we were talking to Oath in the break room, and he was saying that he thinks Tsukuyomi is slept on, and he finally whips it out. So he's going to put his money where his mouth is and shows us, is it actually slept on, or is it there's a reason people aren't playing it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of options for it here, right? There is a lot of, well, I mean, I was saying earlier with Bastet lock-in that there's a lot of immobility on this team. What have Wardens done? They've picked 2 more characters with no movement ability. A lot of movement speed, but no movement abilities.
I will say that Tsukuyomi and Bastet both have some flexibility, and they certainly could be switching up here, Bastet in the jungle or Tsukuyomi in solo lane, but I think it's more so going to be the Bastet in the solo, just a little bit safer. Tsukuyomi is such an easy gank. He has to use the Moonlight to, be his own CC immunity, but if you're hitting anyone, you're going in. You're not using that to escape more often than not, so I'm looking more towards that Tsukuyomi going to be in the jungle, piloted by Oath, and then Ramakami can have the Soul Eater Bastet fun in that solo lane. You're up against Baron. You're never going to worry about the life of the party. You can just, jump away or use the Huntress of Bast if you want to immune that. So I think that's going to be a better matchup in solo, for my money anyways.
I got to agree with you too. And the Bastet is something that we've seen played a lot in solo so far this week already, not so much in the jungle as a counterpoint. But yeah, Tsukuyomi definitely really an all in or nothing kind of a character. And I think Hounds have done well to draft around that. You've got Thoth, who's going to be able to really capitalize from a distance. You don't necessarily have to match how far Tsukuyomi's going to go in. You can just go, okay, Oath is that deep. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to throw in my abilities from this far away. That's perfectly fine. Artemis has to get a little further in, but if you can chain Tusky through that entire line, you can get some decent range on the ult.
Go ahead, ask me.
Who do you think's going to win?
No, I want you to ask me. Okay, so that's not what I thought you were going to ask. I thought you were going to ask me which draft I favored. And given the fact, let's just take away the team names for a second. Given the fact that the Eldritch Hounds have defeated the Wardens 2 separate times already, just throw that out the door. Right now, looking at the drafts, I love exactly what the Wardens have done here to change up their sort of play style, change up everything, throwing the AMC in mid Poseidon jungle. That is completely just a different play style that the Hounds are going to have to adhere to. So I love what they did there. Giving the draft, I'm going to have to give drafting over to the Wardens.
Yeah, I think I got to agree with you here. They've got a really strong composition. They've got some interesting picks, but we got to see how it's going to work out in practice. Game number 2 for the Wardens and the Hounds.
Twice now, the Wardens have been able to take the Hounds to a Game 3. We'll see if they can repeat that a third and final time in this matchup, because one of these 2 teams is going to be going home if this, at the end of the set, I should say. It could be the Kaolin Wardens after just Game 2. It could be the Eldritch Hounds if it goes all the way over towards Game 3. And a new look for Oath here, Ro, as we have been seeing more of these auto-centric style assassins, the Sets, the Bakasuras of the world, Now we see the Tsukuyomi pop out here.
Look, he has his own form of chase down. What is Set and Bakasura great at doing? They are fast, they can chase down an enemy carry and kind of just chomp them, right? Well, I guess that's in Bakasura's case. Oath now just chases with his ultimate instead. He has a lot of slows in his kit. He has a disarm into a stun. A disarm great against Griff, Moswell, and Sino. As long as he's not ulting into high health targets and lands when they aren't under threat and gets blown up by a Heimdall ult or a Stinger or a Kraken, then he's going to be able to outbox most of these opponents. That is the one worry though. If Oath goes in too early, he is stuck in a backline that is very, very hard to box against. He only has the disarm to counter that. But again, we've talked about him getting active in the early game. He'll do that again this game, I'm sure. He had a great late game last game, and if we're talking about late game this game, Oath is going to scale into that Boomer's Hammer as well.
Gino, what did he get? Second ability, I wonder if it was the pull. He got the root already, so I was wondering if he got heal or pull to see if we'd see aggression further in the duo, but we'll not see it at least for now, just keeping that dual lane under. It will be the heal actually, second up. So going for a little bit of the lockdown, but mostly some of that sustain just to try and match what Quig can do early on.
Yeah, I think last meta we saw a lot of Sylvanas. Well, we didn't see too many Sylvanas, but we saw a lot of them going for their pull instead of their heal. But now, just go for your heal. You're able to clear the wave safely, and that gets you to... With the pull, you're not going to be able to get too many kills in this meta anyway. We rarely see kills at level 2 or level 1. Now we just see him get the lane pressure, and we can see on the map he is taking both of those Harpies with Griff. They'll get some pressure again once they go back to that lane and take the left Harpy camp as well.
Crimson on one of his top picks of his career with this Thoth, and going up against a new-looking Moswell, more traditionally towards the mages, and not even so much the traditional mages, the Zeuses, Opwashes, Hells. You can throw Merlin as a little bit of a spice in there, but Moswell going towards a Hunter this time in a Moose and Cobb in that mid lane. And one of the things that specifically got brought up by Trelly is added pressure in that mid lane where they were lacking it last game.
That's right. We talk about styles for both of these players, Sino and Moswell, and they've got two different picks, but honestly, they're kind of similar styles to what their usual gods are. Sino always opting for that objective DPS. Poseidon, always one of the higher objective DPS mages.
Crim needs a little bit of help there. Don't spread the bees back over to him. Oath, he just got rid of those at that time, but Rep Crimson falling very low in that fight. If that swarm was up for Moswell, probably could have been a kill. On the mid lane are the Eldritch Hounds, who would be singing first blood for the Wardens, but that's not the case. Instead, Sano reprising the same pressure he put in game number 1, stealing away a red buff.
That's right. We're talking about the pressure they have in mid lane. There you go. He's making use of it. And as well, he's going to scale to that same point that he's comfortable with in these mages. And he's a relatively immobile hunter, but he's fast just like he is on the Hell, the Vulcan, and the Zeus. His same kind of playstyle, but added pressure and added objective DPS.
Griff gets stunned out, is trying to fight back against Quig and Doomman, but he's losing a lot of HP because of that trade out there. He'll return some back over towards Quig and Doomman, even walking into a trap, just trying to go back through. But looking at the relic selection, a couple of sets of beads on the side of the Kaolin Wardens, and Aegis out of Sino, Shell. But on the opposite end here, it's nothing but purification beads coming out of the Eldritch Hounds. I mean, why so much priority on the beads pickup first, if anything?
I think they're all going to need them eventually, so that's just where they defaulted to at this point. I'm surprised to see them this early, especially on, like, Yamoja, for example. Then again, she can be easily caught out by a good Sylvanas pull into something like a Stinger. She will melt and die. But, I just think they wanted to play a slower early game for some reason. They don't need this support-esque relic. They don't need, any kind of sprint or sprute, anything like that.
We don't see a Bumbas yet out of Relentless One with this Baron Sami. Instead, he immediately rushed into a Warlock staff, so he'll get that one started up. Not even barely 3 or so minutes into the game. Still added pressure towards the dual lane, but Oath is wrapping around behind. Griff doesn't have ultimate, and neither does Gino. Instead, it's just going to be a 3v3 fight now with Sino rotating in. Kraken is up, but the fighting will cease. No further engagement by the junglers.
Important thing to note there, Dude Member is still level 4, so the confidence to walk forward for him, not there.
Relentless One and Remikami both low in the solo lane, but just trading blow for blow. Now, unfortunately for Relentless One, he's got natural healing in his kid. Remikami gonna have to wait a little bit until that Soul Eater's online.
So both ults, both beads traded for those solo laners. Maybe it becomes a gank for Sino, who still has his ult. Oath didn't commit anything to that dual lane gank, so still has his ult himself too.
Quig does rotate back into the lane. We'll probably see these supports here for at least the next couple of levels, maybe even at least just one more rotation of this purple buff spawn. But now that you've gotten this pressure in the mid lane from Moswell, able to get that red buff stolen away prior thanks to the help of Sino, Where should Sino probably be prioritizing himself? Is it just making sure that Moswell can get ahead and stay ahead, or should Sino put some pressure elsewhere?
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about that they have pressure. Granted, they had pressure last game. They got a lot of invades last game, and obviously, yes, they lost that one, but they did have a significant lead, even getting a Fire Giant relatively early on in the game. But this game, however, completely even despite picking higher pressure gods in that mid lane jungle position.
We'll see the dual lane back themselves out. Just to go back and pick up a couple of items. Gino's back stopped by Quig just to delay him a little bit longer. Just be a little bit of a nuisance. But now with that red buff spawning back in, the Kaolin Wardens, jungler and mid, can go ahead and grab that one for themselves. Make sure that Moswell can try and keep that pressure up in mid, or maybe if anything, just try and stay alive and even in that damage department as Crimson.
It looks like both teams just assuming nothing much can happen early. I can't invade, you can't invade me. We'll just take our own buffs. We'll continue to stack up all of the items that we have, and there are a lot of stacking items on both teams, as we've seen a lot in this meta.
I think the only one who's not going to have a stacking item is going to be Sino here, as he's picked up a Spear of Desolation compared to everybody else who has some form of stack splits up. Obviously, Moswell hasn't gone back to get what we can imagine to be a Transcendence early on, but yeah, it's just going to be Sino. So 9 out of 10 players stacking up this game.
That's right. You know, look, when everyone at home can speak for themselves, right? When I'm stacking an item, I don't feel like I'm really strongest until I have that item stacked. So again, we might see another couple minutes of slow gameplay from both of these teams.
Maybe aggression out of the duo lane. Dude Man and Quick will, for now, just pick up the Lost Night offering camp. Dude Man Bro will walk up, just a little shy on the trap. A good Riptide will lock Griff in place. He's trying to get back to his own Bifrost, but he's not going to find a way through. Does have to expend both the ultimate to try and get out of there. Kraken just off the mark by Sino, but it zones Quig and Dude Man away to allow his Hunter to find a path out. Relentless under fire on the right-hand side, and the piercing Moonlight will be more than enough damage to take him out. First blood goes to the Hounds.
A lot of aggression coming from Hounds in both side lanes. Finally, a kill on Remakami. He still has his beads, he used his ultimate, but it's not enough to get away from a double assassin composition.
And this is something that we saw against the Baron Samedi previously, where if he wants to sit there in that lane, throw a couple of assassins his way and throw a couple of damage options towards Crimson. He uses that evade and punish, but it's not going to get him very far when he's being chased by 3. Moswell with a stinger from range will find the pick, but now a turnaround as the dual lane has rotated back over. Good trap onto Moswell, and Oath rotating in will get the beats from Moswell. That stinger, though, should be coming back up very shortly, and Oath worried about the follow-up damage. Will beads the pull from Gino, but rounding that corner is Moswell. Oath not wanting to take that fight.
Surprising confidence from Hounds here to take that fight and defend that red buff despite having no ultimates, but maybe it's because Remakami has this solo lane pressure, is able to rotate, but completely nullified by Griff's rotation there as well.
Okay, this might be the earliest we've seen a solo laner in this patch specifically make a rotation towards mid, and all to try and get a pick onto Moswell, who's still holding on to that ultimate after he got the reset prior. The Kaolin Wardens will fend off the Eldritch Hounds and keep themselves alive.
Yeah, look, putting a lot of importance on these jungle buffs early game. They don't want to let Kaolin Wardens get a lead in this early game. You know, they just had their solo laner die on a tower. They got a kill after that to even it back up again. Now Relentless one out of position as well. He has that bead, so he'll opt to use the ultimate first.
Coffin will at least turn a little bit more damage towards Remakami, but now Oath is on the way, and so a sign of the Kraken is here. Remakami uses the beads to get away, but the piercing Moonlight to the back line. Oath will take down Relentless before the heal goes through, and Sino can only sit back and watch as his solo laner goes down yet again.
Now, all of a sudden, Oath is getting strong. He's getting those stacks. He's about to finish his hi-rez Lament as well. His damage is about to go through the roof, and he will scale, like I said, into that. Oswald, is that a solo kill?
That was a solo kill, I imagine, under his own tower. What was Crimson doing that far up by himself?
I don't know. Moswell was low. He doesn't have beard, so maybe just too much confidence there coming. Maybe Quig encouraging him to dive that tower, and he probably shouldn't have been.
I think people forget sometimes just how much damage Stinger does. Even in the early, late game, we know how hard Stinger hits, but it has a deceptive amount of damage early game.
Yeah, but look, he is pushing down that mid lane. That does give him space. Despite dying, that does give him space to take that, or his team to take that Scorpion. So that is global gold, so that death will be made up a little bit.
Do you see a rotation for the Hounds back towards the right side of the map? Sino now going into a ring for his second item. A few options available to him as we do get to take a look back at the solo kill that Moswell was able to pick up by himself. Very low in HP, and a Riptide pushing Crimson up. He just, it wasn't even that necessarily that Crimson wanted to take, okay, no, he did want to take the fight. He actually dashed into the tower, and Moswell just punished him.
Yeah, Moswell just enough mana thanks to that Transcendence for that ultimate. Maybe Crimson didn't think he had enough mana, and if he did not, then he probably would have succeeded in soloing him under that tower. He had the help a little bit from protections from the Riptide out of Quig, but not enough to survive a... Yeah, I mean, the Stinger shreds percentage penetration, so a very easy kill for him, just thanks to the fact that he had mana for it.
Yeah, I mean, even that base damage right there, plus the 100% scaling comes through, even with all this extra HP that everybody's been getting. Once those procs are taken away, and once the SAMC's got a couple of those items, that Stinger will start to do a lot of damage to these mages. But that now evens up the game for the Kaolin Wardens in the kill department. The gold lead still favoring the Eldritch Hounds, about a 1,300, even despite the fact that XP is sitting dead even.
It is neck and neck XP, maybe Remikami, or no, Relentless One will find that.
Kraken will be good, and that will be the end of that. Oath goes back in with his own ultimate, but he doesn't have the damage to close out the kill onto either. Beads pop by, Relentless One slowed down by the Caltrops, but Oath can't continue the fight in. Crimson dashes away from Moswell, but Quig gets body blocked in, finds a double stun. And that should be the indication in the mid lane, especially with Gino missing that pull.
It was a close one. Erupt Crimson still has his beads, so he probably would have been able to get away from it. But if you can force that beads away, then that opens up the opportunity for someone like Sino, who's had 2 of his Krakens so far beads on the enemy team, to find a kill in the mid lane.
Yeah, you can only beat so many Krakens before eventually you're not going to have them up whenever it does come back around. Doomman Bro level 11 on this Artemis, going back to, well, I imagine it's to finish up that Wind Demon, and indeed he will. So the crit is now online. So we're looking in the 1v1 trade out. Dude Man's got the advantage in the chance of an RNG crit coming through up against Griff.
Yeah, so what I want to see out of Sino now, especially, he's got that ring online, he's got that percentage penetration for himself only, really, and I guess Relentless One and Gino as well, but those damage numbers won't matter too much. But it's time to burn some objectives. That's what this double Hunter team comp does, and Poseidon was certainly good at doing that. And Sino, one of the best players in the world at calling these early objectives and finding these, good pull, good, what would we say, heart's not in it, whatever.
Yeah, a good try on the pull, but Gino misses out, and it may cost him his life. Oath with the ultimate will only dive in up against Gino. He does use his ult in response, and then a Kraken whiff right in the middle by Sino. Not going to find anybody there. It's just one pick for the Hounds.
Gino getting aggressive and looking for that early lead, or I guess looking to recoup some of the early lead that Hounds have, and is really desperate to get these pulls and I guess just get a beads. I can't imagine Erupt Crimson would let himself get pulled all the way in, so I think that was a pretty high risk and relatively low reward play, so I can't imagine he'll be making that mistake again.
Relentless gets picked up by the Cat, but not a whole lot of follow-up from Remikami. Now that physical defense is online for the Baron, Rem's not going to be doing probably as much damage as he would hope, though instead of going for kind of this hybrid style of build with this Bastet solo, it's into another damage item, Jotun's Wrath for Remikami.
Yeah, look, you need the cooldown, right? If you don't have the cooldowns, you cannot poke very often, and you cannot heal very often with your Soul Eater. So as long as he has the cooldown and he can force these relics, this ultimate out of Relentless One, then he can finally make use of this CC that his ult brings and the root that his cat brings out of his 3.
How do you feel about, the demonic grip back, going back to Sino with this ring is something I was going to try and bring up to see, which of the 3 rings you kind of had maybe a favoritism toward, but how do you feel about demonic in general, especially if this is the only ring that he's going for?
Normally I prefer Telkines, but in his style of play, I would also say if I was an assassin jungler or an Osiris jungle, for example, if Sino was playing it, he would always go that Executioner where I would normally prefer Kin. It's just his playstyle, really.
Relentless under fire again, and their ult by Oath will close the gap, and the Baron will go down, but so will Dude Man on the opposite side of the map. Sino teaming up with Griff to find an extra pick and make it a 1-for-1 trade on opposite sides.
And we're talking about that value of that Jotun's Wrath. Now he gets to use his ult more often. He's able to get another fight before Relentless One is able to.
Crimson charging up ult off to the sideline. Gold Fury taken by the Eldritch Hounds. Was that Quig who just stole that all by himself up in the middle of everybody? Crimson finds a pick onto Sino, a stun, lands onto Moswell, but it'll be a 1-for-1 trade, make it a 2-for-1 as Quig goes down, and Oath a little too late to save it out there at the end of the day. 3 for 2 but the fury for the Hounds.
Dude, man, bro, a happy dude right now. He was sitting in base. He had just died. He's watching his team do that. Now his team moves up to a 3K lead off the back of no help from Dude, man, bro, really. He was dead. Maybe he forced some cooldowns and that helped. But Quig with a great steal with that stun, I believe. It wasn't even a double bubble, which normally has the higher damage. So maybe a little bit of luck involved because Erupt Crimson wasn't able to get his ult off thanks to Gino. I think he pulled him out of the first ultimate cast and was ready to ult the second one. But by then, Quig had already stolen it.
So MVP for that fight goes to Quig to steal that one away and make it much more worthwhile for the Eldritch Hounds. As mentioned, 3,000 gold up for the Chaos team. Experience largely even across the board as a whole, though we do see a 2-level disparity between Oath and Sino in the jungle.
I talk a lot about Sino, calling these objectives like he has been. He calls a Gold Fury there, but it can always go badly. There's always a chance when an enemy god is around that it will get stolen. Unfortunately, he gets a little unlucky there, despite a good call made when Dude Man Bro was dead. He took the, I guess the dice roll and it came up short. I can't imagine he won't stop doing it again. He still has that objective DPS, but Dude Man Bro, with his relics up, is about to be ganked again.
Now I'm looking at Quig right now. I'm looking at Quig specifically right now. We'll take a glance at the Pyromancer that's going to go to the Eldritch Hounds, but everybody on the Hounds has picked up beads, and now everybody as well on the Hounds has picked up Aegis. Aside from Quig, who hasn't had a chance to go back, he's not level 12 yet.
I hope he doesn't get Aegis.
You hope not. What kind of relic are you looking for out of Quig whenever he does go back?
I need a support relic of some kind, a sprint, a shell, something like that.
Well, River's Rebuke will be used. It'll get the coffin out of Relentless One, and that will be the end of that moment at least. But Relentless gets picked back up and thrown into another ult out of Oath. Remikami granted a kill, but a triple Kraken out of Sino. Not going to get as much value thanks to those Aegis popping through. Crimson, though, walking through 3 players, will not find a way out of here. Moswall puts him down.
Odd pathing by Crimson to walk the low side of that camp when he needed to back out, but I guess he just wanted to get to his team as soon as possible. But that team had just been hit by a 3-man Kraken. All of their Aegis is used. Look at those timers on the bottom right side of your screen, all used around the same period. That is a rough time. If you're that team and you're up against a Poseidon who has his Kraken coming up again soon, then you're worrying.
4 sets of beads, 3 sets of Aegis burned out in that one little moment of a team fight. And what happened all the while? Dude Man Bro was split pushing, getting some of that extra farm for himself, recognizing he couldn't get to that fight, which now brings us to a still remaining 3K gold lead up for the Eldritch Hounds. We'll start to pick up some of those offerings. One away from getting themselves their second trebuchet. They haven't used that one in the left lane just yet.
Not just yet. Look, this is Warden's chance, right? They are behind in gold. That's okay. It's not too much. It's not significant at this point in the game. We're up to the 17-minute mark. They need to recognize that they are right now in the lead if you consider the fact that Hounds have almost no relics on their side. I need Gino to find a root pull. I need Moswell to find somebody in the jungle. I need Relentless One to pull somebody in. I need Sino to crack in 1 or multiple targets. That way they can start to build back this gold deficit and actually take it to these objective fights where they are really strong.
I mean, that was a dream setup for Sino in that last fight to find 3 people with a Kraken. Unfortunate for him that there are 1 too many Aegis on the enemy team to have gotten the real value of the damage, but maybe more valuable by stripping those relics out. As the teams regroup and go back to their stats of farming, we do see Crimson, after that Charon's Coin, a Divine Ruin to answer a lot of the healing up against themselves, and a Soul Reaver to deal with some of those HP targets.
This is Sino's chance. He has his ultimate. His whole team have their ultimates. He has both of his relics. He needs to be hunting for one of these targets that doesn't have beads or Aegis. For example, this Tsukuyomi, who's running into his own buff. Sino needs to be getting deep in the enemy jungle and trying to look for one of these targets so he can secure a kill.
We're sitting 45 seconds. This would be a perfect chance to grab Oath if possible. The ultimate used. The coffin will pull him back in, and they won't even need the Kraken to get that. Maybe they can find something up against Remikami, running as far as he can. The Whirlpool into the Kraken. Will catch the cat, and he can't find a way back out. Moswall picks up the double kill for the Wardens.
Exactly what they needed. That's why you have that advantage. That's why you want to force relics and then fight again before those relics are back up. And they are so confident at this point that they are pulling the objective.
Fire Giant started, immediately leashed away as Quig gets caught out. Bead still down for 7 seconds, but the pull just off the mark by Gino. Will be at least a delay in the engagement. Relentless One gets rooted out. The Tusky comes through. Relentless, everybody's getting stunned out, and that will cause a River's Rebuke from Quig to make sure the Kaolin Wardens do not continue any further forward.
I gotta say, they are overstaying their welcome now. They just fought back that deficit. Go ahead, spend some of that gold that you've earned. You know, that's what their comp does. If they want to fight Eldritch Hounds again while they have their relics up, you're gonna have to do it all over again. You have to force those relics and then fight again after that. But instead of going for the hard objective to kill, they're gonna go to the easy one. I think a much easier decision to make, but they've already wasted a lot of time.
Corrupt Crimson's here. No ultimate available. Eldritch Hounds once again steal away the Primal. Gino finds a pull onto one. Remikami up on the coffin will grab Quig of all people to grab in. But now he's got to deal with Oath. The shell is popping. It's not enough to save Relentless One. A 1-for-none trade. And yet another Fury to the Hounds. Might as well add 2 to that as Gino has nowhere to go. Trapped between the Riptides.
That's just sloppy play from Wardens. You shouldn't be pulling a Fire Giant this early in the game at that point. You know, look, we've seen teams do Fire Giants at 18 minutes before. Their team comp can do it, but they had just used all of their damaging abilities on securing those 2 kills. Take a moment to breathe, go to the Gold Fury, get some gold so you can scale. You have 2 Boomers Hammers coming online eventually. You don't need to get a Fire Giant right now. I think they got ahead of themselves. They needed to remember that they were still behind a little bit, so they just should have taken the easy objective. And again, they make that decision too late. They go to the Gold Fury when everyone's back up. Sano almost 0 mana, and now Eldritch Hounds in a point where they can pull the big objective.
And not a single response from the Kaolin Wardens. No ward coverage, nobody in the area. The Eldritch Hounds, after taking 2 lives and a Fury away from the Wardens on the left side of the map, they'll pop their Frenzy, they'll grab themselves a Fire Giant, and they'll continue to comfortably push themselves in the lead. 5,000 gold up. And looking at the Kaolin Wardens, I gotta imagine they still have some of that silver lining here. A 6-0 Amuz and Ka. Moswell is swinging in these team fights.
Yes.
But the Eldritch Hounds are just playing the map better.
They are, honestly, and it's also Wardens doing mistakes and Eldritch Hounds capitalizing on those mistakes. It's going to be hard for Moswell to continue in this game with 0 deaths. He's up against 2 assassins, a Bastet, a Tsukuyomi. You can get long-range board from an Artemis zigzagging their way through a team fight. You can get riptided. You know, it's not going to be easy for him to keep this 0 deaths, especially if he fights before these relics are back up.
Yeah, 30 seconds until the beads are back up, and Moswell has at least 1 safe haven of his relics. Still a few towers left standing on the map, though, for the Eldritch Hounds to push through. They have both those towers in mid and left lane, though. We'll only need like 1 basic attack to drop the one on the left-hand side. So if you're the Hounds here with this first Fire Giant you got, Ro, are you just using this to try and just push these towers out, or are you maybe looking to try and grab a Phoenix?
I think get a gold lead, right? No matter what, Relentless One is going to be farming that right side of the map unless he gets forced back. So make sure you are pushing the mid lane tower, the left lane tower, the right lane tower, whatever it may be. Force that Baron back. Do not let him farm. He's only level 16 right now, 3 levels down on Remikami, so he's not getting anywhere near close to that Boomer's Hammer. He doesn't have the gold, let alone the levels.
Dude Man Bro does grab both towers in the left lane. That mid-tier 1 fell earlier, and now Dude Man can join the rest of the squad to start pushing up this mid-tier 2. All 5 members of the Hounds now grouping up. A pull from Gino does find one. Crimson is down to half HP, immediately forced out into River's Rebuke to separate the team fight out. The coffin from Relentless will pull Quig back in. That'll get the beats on the Umoja. But Relentless is the one who's worse for wear. So is everybody on the Kaolin Wardens. Their HP is too low to keep this fight going. And Crimson goes back in all by himself. Very aggressive to the back line. Does find a pick on one. It'll be 1 in a tower for the Hounds.
This is why we see Crimson on this pick game after game throughout the... Yeah, he is. Look, he's getting pulled in by a Sylvanas. He doesn't have beads. His team bails him out, and then he gets a 3-man ultimate off the back of it. He should have been dead at the start of that fight, but Eldritch Hounds are just too far ahead with a Fire Giant.
Starting up the Phoenix with only 1 of their frontliners now. Whirlpool goes through, but so does a Frenzy on the side of the Hounds. The Phoenix's health bar down to half HP. Oath wants to get into this fight to take down Gino. The Kraken will be aegis out by Oath, but still eating a lot of damage from the remainder after does manage to make it out of the Phoenix alive. So does everybody else on the Hounds. It'll be a swift retreat for the Chaos team.
A mid lane Phoenix, and that was a greedy call, honestly. It's not easy to take a mid lane Phoenix at any point in the game, let alone the first one at 23 minutes as well. But I guess that's just what happens when you have such a lead. Oath going deep there for a support kill. Not something you always like to see, but he has that beads and Aegis ready for the Kraken. A Kraken that was good too. Sano's job is to wait for that assassin to come in and try to nullify them like he did there, but beads and Aegis is something he's got to get through first. Now it's done. He may have an opportunity to get a kill at another point, but now we're seeing Oath with the Boomer's Hammer online. It's going to get to a real struggle for the Kaolin Wardens here.
Some of this large gold in hand. We see Dude Man hit level 20 just off the small minions of his camp, so he should be able to go back and finish up that starter item should he have enough gold to do so. A couple other level 20s on the map, Remikami and Oath. Out of the right side of the map, it'll be a Heartseeker picked up by Oath going back to base. And if his damage wasn't already high, it's just gotten exponentially worse, coupling that with a Boomba's Hammer.
Yeah, look, I can't imagine he's going to have much struggle as long as he doesn't get caught out in the jungle. You know, Remikami and Quick playing quite aggressive here. They don't want to let Wardens, or don't want to give Wardens any room to breathe. They're going to take this Gold Fury, make sure there's no chance of them stemming the bleeding. You know, a little bit of global gold from a Scorpion is all Sino can really bring. A global gold from a tower kill and some XP for Relentless One, so he can get closer to that Boomba's Hammer. But it might all be too little too late. The one thing Wardens have going for them right now is that Fire Giant is gone off of the side of the Hounds, and it's not back up yet for another minute. So they have some breathing room, but they're not going to be able to catch up in that short amount of time.
And the Kaolin Wardens, you know, something that the desk highlighted very well going into this one was the amount of pressure that this team comp as a whole has, answering all the questions and filling in the gaps and the cracks of what kind of faltered for them in the later game of game number 1. But we're just seeing basically a rinse and repeat of game 1 now in this second game up as the Hounds continue to climb up that gold lead, 10,000 at this point. Nearly everybody, at least with 5 full items online for the Hounds. The Kaolin Wardens are playing on the back foot.
They are indeed. The XP lead not mattering as much now, except on Relentless One, who is 0-6, still not close to that Boomba's Hammer. I doubt he has the gold turret. He can't farm very quickly at this point because he will be pressured out by the Hounds, and that Fire Giant is spawning soon, so he is on the clock.
Juno doesn't find a target with that pull. Instead, he'll eat poke from Crimson. Relentless One, even missing out on that damage. And Rep Crimson is playing so greedily on this thought. The fact that he is allowed to dash, even I know that there's a wall separating them, which won't stop Remikami from getting pulled in. It will get the beats from the Bastet, but I mean, Crimson is just dashing and throwing out that one on cooldown at them.
Even Quig now hunting for a kill, and he's found the Great Wall.
Oh no, Sino is stuck, and there's no shell to get him out just yet. He does get some backup from Chino, but the Frenzy has been popped by the Hounds. But they're not going to continue the fight forward. Instead, they turn themselves over to the Pyromancer, and that one will go down quickly.
Okay, without Frenzy, maybe you don't want to pull it. He hits the pull. I think Relentless One did a good job by him using immuning that one because I believe he was going to be pulled in by that Bastet.
Fire Giant, though, half HP. The Hounds went straight from the fight to the Pyro to the Fire. They should be able to grab that one unless the Kaolin Wardens have something to say about it. No, Fire Giant goes to them. Oath quickly backs himself out, but Relentless One takes out Crimson before that final judgment goes through. Tusky ripping through the backline now. Grip will find a way to the Bifrost, and Doomman Pro has been left all by himself, but Oath has come back in to help him out. Finds a stun up against Relentless and makes it a 2-for-2 trade.
Look, Doomember going unchecked for the majority of that team fight up until Sino was able to walk forward, body block some of those auto attacks, trade his life so that Doomember can die as well. But it doesn't matter. There's still a Fire Giant on the side of this double assassin support combo.
Quig, Oath, and Remikami, the only ones left alive now for the Hounds, will utilize what little of this Fire Giant buff they can for now to take out the last remaining tower on the map. Mid lane Phoenix has respawned, so silver lining for the Wardens. The only downside now is the fact that that is a weakened Phoenix. Double Assassin pushing up the right side will get some poke on this Phoenix, but I can't imagine that the Hounds can actually take this one, especially with Moswell and Griff now showing up.
I think that one play is, you either pull into low health support, which maybe I would have preferred they didn't do, but I think they can go for Moswell here. I'm sorry, my mic is cutting out, but that's okay. I'll hold it right here. It should be fine. Now, if they can get onto Moswell, I imagine they can punish him for having no relics here.
Moswell takes a bit of poke from Oath. Oath will be able to heal up some of that thanks to the help of his Boomba's Hammer. The Eldritch Hounds will back away from the right Phoenix. They won't try and make a siege to this left. Instead, they'll delay the few fire minions they've got left in that lane to keep the Kaolin Wardens at bay. The losing Doomman Bro definitely hurts the Hounds. It slows down their push. But with these minions pushed so far on the left-hand side, I gotta imagine the Hounds can just regroup it and start their pushing once again.
Yeah, I think they can. I don't think there's too much of a struggle for them. Maybe you'll have to take over for a little while here, J-Mac, and analyze the game.
Yeah, we'll let you get some help on that mic there as it starts to come through. At least for the Eldritch Hounds, 77,000 gold, a 12K lead that they've established at 28 minutes. This is about the time of last game that they were closing things out. And now the Eldritch Hounds will finally regroup and start their onslaught towards the left side of the map.
I think we're okay now, so we can come ahead and analyze this push from Eldritch Hounds onto this Phoenix. So the Relic's back up pretty soon. They've got 40 seconds on Moswell, so maybe they want to make a play soon. Erupt Crimson, though, all the confidence from him, just up here poking, not afraid of Relentless One because he's been kept busy in the mid lane. Gino still looking for these pulls, but missed another one.
Don't really want to leave Dude Man Bro by himself to try and push this Phoenix. Quig will be stuck in the middle of Kraken. Not going to be entirely good, but Moswell's got the follow-up instead, so it's now one down for the Hounds. Remakami beads his way to try and run from the Kaolin Wardens, but it's Crimson and Dude Man, the two carries of the Hounds, sitting in that left side of the jungle. Can they find a slowdown against Sino? Can they find a pick against the Kaolin Wardens? Tusky comes through. That will slow them down, but Dude Man Pro is the one in danger. Beads and Aegis have to be used to get the Hunter out. He does manage to slip himself by. Griff goes back to Crimson, finds the pickup against them. Remakami low. Dude Man Pro out of this fight, and so is the rest of his team. 3 dead on the Eldritch Hounds.
Wardens have officially stopped the... What is it? Maybe, I don't know what Oath has been doing here, but I guess they've both just been healing up. He managed to get the kill, so he wins the 1v1, but I can't imagine it's going to result in too much. But look, now Wardens have stopped the bleeding. They can finally move on to a point where they can teamfight relatively evenly. I know they are down 10,000 gold, but we get into the 30-minute point, J-Max, so this gold matters less and less. There's two versus one in terms of Boomba's hammer on the team comp, so that will come into play a little bit. We might see the Wardens get a little bit more gold, so they close that gap of that 10k gold, a little bit. So those Fire Giant team fights, that Fire Giant dance can be a little bit more equal. So I can't imagine that they'll be able to defend this one. They're going for kills instead, which is going to make them take a little longer to get this tower.
Hold on, Quig, but a double stun and River's Rebuke after will catch 3, especially with that Riptide holding Moswell in place. Use the beats and Aegis immediately though, so he doesn't take too much damage from it. But Dude Man Bro and now Crimson back off of respawn.
Great ult.
Can make his way in, and that will stop the tier 2 tower from going down.
Not only does he defend their tier 2, which, not too valuable of an objective right now, but he gets both relics again from Moswell. So what I need Remakami to do in this next team fight is look for that ult on Moswell. Both of the last team fights, he's ulted Gino into his team. Not something you want to do when a Sylvanas is able to knock her entire team up in the air and CC them, while Moswell is just free casting with no relics.
Fire Giant set to respawn here in just about 15 to 20 seconds. And the Eldritch Hounds have already established their ward presence across this area. One inside the pit and a few just around the surrounding area. All Phoenixes up for the Kaolin Wardens. They don't have to worry about any fire minions. They can come up to defend this Fire Giant, and they're going to need to get there quick, because the Eldritch Hounds have a lot of burn, especially with this Frenzy up.
With the Frenzy as well. But they might just look to burn a frontline target like Relentless One right here. Riptide over the wall. Great placement.
Getting bullied out. The slow is good. Oath will continue forward, and Relentless One will make a way out. No teleport available to the Baron to get back in, so he'll have to just rely on his own healings to stay sustained in this fight. Fire Giant, enhanced Fire Giant at that. Pulled by the Eldritch Hounds, a Riptide to try and hold Gino in place. A Kraken only hits Remakami, and the Coffin by Relentless to try and pull one in, but instead he'll eat the final judgment from Crimson, and that will push the Kaolin Wardens back.
Is it enough to keep them out of this team fight? They still got the Frenzy available. They may just pop it and force the fight right now.
Oath will throw out the Caltrops to slow them down. Relentless is low. Quig finds an ultimate up against Gino, who will have to use the shell to find a way out, but the Fire Giant all the while taken by the Eldritch Hounds. Relentless One slowed down by Oath, and the Eldritch Hounds push forward, but they walked right into the damage of Moswell. Oath will dive into the backline and maybe regret that decision, as he has to make a hasty retreat out.
A little greedy. We saw them chase into Remakami last game when he was the Baron. You do not want to chase into a Baron Boomba's Hammer God. There's no chance that you're going to catch him, and you're just running into heals. He's healing his entire team, he's reducing his cooldown, and you're about to be pulled in further by that ultimate when it's back up.
Hounds are regrouping now. 3-2 split. 3 to the right, 2 to the mid. Remakami and Oath, the assassins, will be dealt with by the majority of the Kaolin Wardens, but that's because there's no minions across the board for really anybody to go with. Sure, you've got that enhanced Fire Giant, But these Phoenixes do still hurt. If you can get anything to soak up a couple of shots, it'll help out.
I like the split though from Hounds. Sending Bastet to maybe left lane, send him to mid lane. This double assassin will beat this double mage, whereas you have this double carry and support option on the right lane. But Sina rotating over quickly, just like a Poseidon does. He will leave his Phoenix in mid lane to go down though.
Relentless has to use his beads. The mid Phoenix goes down. Relentless one will too. Oath and Remikami able to find a pickup against the one mage. Final judgment off the mark by Crimson. The Kraken still up for Sino, and Gino's health bar falling low.
Wardens.
2 Phoenixes down. The Wardens only have 1 left to defend. Oh, misclick.
Showing off a little bit, maybe I'll call it that. The Wardens are forced to back out because now these assassins can flank behind. All of a sudden their backline is at a struggle.
Gino uses the ultimate. A Kraken will find a couple in the backline, but it's not enough damage. Dude Man Bro takes down 1. Dude Man Bro takes down 2. Sino left on the wrong side of the Phoenix to run away from the strength of the Eldritch Hounds. Moswell rooted out by Crim, taken down by Oath. The Kaolin Wardens all the times have been able to take the Hounds to a game 3, but it's not going to happen today. The Eldritch Hounds will finally find the 2-0 that they've been waiting for all season long.
I guess you do not need a Tsukuyomi ult if you've got a Dude Man Bro on your team. A crit hunter, a crit Artemis no less, able to rip through those targets easy as butter.
And with that, the Eldritch Hounds finally sealing the deal. No longer do they have to worry about a Game 3 tournament against this team, and the Wardens are one of the only teams that have been able to take the Eldritch Hounds to these lengthier sets to really delay these victories out there. But the Eldritch Hounds, again, just like Game 1, really waiting out that early game, holding out that pressure, and able to bring it back late.
Yeah, Moswell picking a higher pressure god. Sino always has his pressure, but this time running on a Poseidon and even more pressure in the mid lane, and still able to win. Go even in the early game, but Hounds just over the mid game, just taking over the game completely.
Hounds find another win in the late game that gives them the 2-0. They move on in the day, and we'll move over to the desk to close out the set.
Thank you, J-Mac. And Trelly, I got one word for this set, and it is dominance. The Eldritch Hounds just look so strong up against the Wardens.
Yeah, I mean, the Wardens definitely brought it. It wasn't a complete wash. There were some good stat lines on there, but it's just the later stage of the game. I think the casters mentioned it perfectly. Dude Man Bro critting everyone so hard. When you let Artemis get to that late game stage, she's going to have so much success because that's where she shines.
And yeah, Dude Man Bro just piloted that so well. And we were talking a little bit about the Tsukuyomi and, how good it was going to work out for Oath with that all-in playstyle. And I mean, when the rest of your team is playing as all-in as Oath, I think it works out just fine. The amount of times we saw Crimson dashing in with his jungler just to get a little bit closer to his kills was crazy.
Yeah, but we got to see so much aggression from both of these squads. I mean, Moswell had a pretty sizable stat line as well. Sinos Krakens were always there, so great back and forth from these teams. If you're the Wardens, I don't think you should be too upset about this one. I love what they did with the draft. It was just the Eldritch Hounds. They looked great. They played together so well, and they stalled out as much as they could. Even if they did fall behind a little bit, their objective play was always on point.
Yeah, for sure. Like the Wardens, as you mentioned, the comp that they had was really good, even really well executed. Gino and Sino are really combining through onto these ults really well, and you see it here in this fight. They get some really solid pickups, but at the end of the day, the Hounds just play better. And it's not even funny.
Yeah, and I think that was the exact plan, right? Try to get to the late game when you can see how much damage you're able to get off. 41,000 for Erupt Crimson on this Thoth. As you mentioned, dashing in aggressively.
Yeah.
If you get to the point in the game where your Thoth can not only be frontlining, but dashing in aggressively, finding kills. At one point, Gino pulled Thoth in, no beats, and Crim was still like, I want to be here. Like, I'm glad you pulled me. I'm closer so I can murder your teammates. And he did.
Yeah, it really did feel like no matter what they were going to do to Crimson, he was more than happy to vibe out. But yeah, that's going to be really upsetting for the Wardens. Obviously, this was their last attempt. They will be going home this time around. Taking a look at the bracket here, the Eldritch Hounds will be moving on for our final set of the day. The Solar Scarabs going to be their opponent here in the finals. And now, Trelly, we saw the Hounds fall up against the Valkyries earlier. We saw the Wardens fall against the Scarabs earlier. Now the Eldritch Hounds have the other SPL team. How do you think they're going to stack up, given how they've looked in that match.
I mean, you got to think the Scarabs are coming off a 2-0 loss to the Valks. The Hounds are coming off a 2-0 win, so they're hot right now, right? They're feeling good, feeling confident, but we've already seen what it looks like when these SCC teams go up against the SPL. Usually, even if they're able to find the aggression, find some early picks, the macro farm is usually where they peter off a little bit. These SPL players know how to play the map just a little bit better. So I expect the Eldritch Hounds to come out swinging, but it's going to go down to that late game portion of the game. Who's going to win those team fights? Because the Solar Scarabs, they don't mind going down a little bit because they're able to win so hard in that early game. It's going to be a war of attrition, I think.
But the Eldritch Hounds also very much not... Like, they're not afraid of that early game either. So it will be a battle to see who can establish that early game dominance. But we'll have to come back and take a look at how it's going to go down in just a bit, because we'll be right back.